Free speech in the West is dead, and today I'm going to share with you excerpts of my interview with legendary investigative journalist and author Glenn Greenwald. We talked about how you can choose to live in a country that may not have as many hard freedoms, but you can have a more peaceful and happy life. Here's a clip with Glenn Greenwald on why free speech is dead.
Hello, everyone. This is Glenn Greenwald, and I am delighted to be joined in conversation by Andrew Henderson, who, among other things, is the founder of Nomad Capitalist. He's also the author of a best-selling book entitled Nomad Capitalist: How to Reclaim Your Freedom with Offshore Companies, Dual Citizenships, Foreign Banks, and Overseas Investments. And we have a wide range of topics, some of which I'm typically focused on, others of which I focus on somewhat less, but I'm interested to explore the connection between all of these. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me.
I'm glad to be here, Glenn, and we're excited to have you at Nomad Capitalist Live, which is why we're here. You're coming to our great event, and it's going to be fantastic.
And I wanted to begin by talking about a topic that I think has debate and controversy because of how central it is to our American value system and founding and way of life, which is the topic of free speech. And this has long been central to my worldview, both as a lawyer and a constitutional lawyer, and now as a journalist. And I often perceive it to be under attack in lots of different ways for lots of different reasons. And I'm interested in your perspective as somebody who works in the realm of finance and economics and advising people and the like, about how that plays into your worldview as well.
Well, it's interesting because, I go to places. We were in, for example, Oman, in the Middle East, filming a couple months ago, and that's a place people would say, "Oh, you don't have as much freedom to say what you want," and good luck going out and saying something against the government. Or, we talk about from the wealth perspective. You talked about using Singapore and places like that as a wealth haven. Oh, you can't go out and protest the same way in Singapore. And I'm a big believer in free speech, and yet I look at what's happening where we're from in the United States. I mean, you know more than anybody about, Julian Assange. I mean, they basically argued, you're not a citizen, you don't get free speech. I mean, it seems like every week I'm reading some new argument about how this person doesn't get free speech and this person isn't protected by the First Amendment and this isn't protected. And it almost seems like, the appeal of getting to live in functional, happy, kind, beautiful societies is almost superior to this fake freedom of speech, where not only, I mean, the First Amendment doesn't protect you from being canceled by people who don't like your speech, but there's a lot more people at each other's throats right now in the Western world. It's certainly, the extent of people are posting stuff on Twitter, and they're getting sent to jail in places like the UK for hate speech. I just say to myself, there's a veneer of free speech in the Western world, which is why I call them legacy brand countries. They were once great. They once did what it says in the tin. And now they're just living off the fumes of that old marketing from decades ago, to where it's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I would just rather be in the place that functions and people are nice and you have a happy life. And you know what? I'll refrain from attacking the king. I don't have any problems with the king. I'm kind of starting to say that seems better than the fake freedom of speech with the pretending. I just think, like, if this is what democracy and free speech looks like, give me the opposite.
You think there's a lot of places in the world that sort of fall into this middle ground between, oh, we're so pure and democratic in defense of our civic freedoms, or North Korea. I'm wondering how you see the kind of interconnectivity of the world and the way in which it's much easier now to travel internationally, to be interconnected nationally. Like, how has that changed your perspective of the United States?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because you're from the outside looking in, and to touch on the free speech again. I saw you had some reservations, I think, like 10 years ago, going back to the US from the stuff you were involved in. I don't think I'd want to go back to the US today if they'd let me. I'd have a lot of concerns doing that. I mean, that's a form of free speech.
In my work as an adult, especially when I decided to journalism, I had kind of full time to start understanding what I was told and having the time and the resources and the ability to kind of go deconstruct it, instead of having information mediated for me by, say, corporate media outlets, which would interpret it in the way that they've been trained to do so. I could go look at documents, kind of, firsthand original source documents. And a lot of what I realized was that so much of what I had almost passively ingested, beliefs and ideas that I didn't even realize were part of my worldview, they just kind of
Yeah.
got embedded in there without my active involvement, were ones that were not just really even false, but were just so propagandistic, designed to obfuscate, not designed to eliminate. And once you can have that luxury of reflecting on it, it really helps a lot. But the other thing that you alluded to that I think is even more important is the ability sometimes to get out of your society and culture in which you've been immersed since birth. I was born in the United States. I lived there until I was, 37, had traveled a lot, but obviously the majority of my life has been there. I'm still an American citizen only. But I've lived in Brazil now for almost 20 years, starting in 2005. And I remember I had this almost epiphany, which seems so simple, but for me, it was actually quite profound, which was after living in Brazil for about a year, I realized, you know what? There's never a time when you turn on the news and listen to the news on television, or you read a political journal, or you read a newspaper where anyone is talking about which country they should go bomb, which country they should invade, which foreign wars they should finance, which foreign armies they should arm. Something that, if you live in the United States, it's second nature. I mean, that's just part of the
And you should be
political.
proud of it. You should be proud.
Yeah, and then that's what, made me realize, wow, this is almost a uniquely American idea. This is not at all universal. And, it came with a kind of reflection on the part of the United States and a part of Americans in the wake of the Iraq War and the endless wars on terror and the like, that, what, maybe this is actually a thing that's harming America and destroying America in a way that no other country is really doing. And it kind of switches that American exceptionalism idea to, yeah, there are some things unique about America, but maybe they're not actually so desirable.
Well, I'll go back to your first point real quick. Intentionality is my word. If you truly go and live, or if you travel extensively and you say, hey, listen, I get there's plenty of alternatives to California and the weather and the girls and all that. But after all this travel, fine. My place is still California. Fine. By all means, come on back, knowing what you're dealing with, live with intention. Don't just, hey, this is what I was given and it's the best because I said so. Live intentionally. And yet, I think there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, I've lived overseas and everywhere else is crap." It's like I don't think you'd say that if you've actually lived, because you'd have some nuance added to your perspective. So anything you do intentionally, to me, is good. To me, I always felt one of the characteristics of the U.S., or at least how I grew up, was the underdog. I remember growing up in Ohio, and at 13, we read about manifest destiny, and I'm like, that's pretty screwed up. And I never thought that might makes right. And I look at it now, and I still don't think might makes right. And that's why I look at America first. And it's like if you said Ireland first or Malaysia first, I'd be like, yeah, of course. But it seems like America first is we're taking over Greenland. We're going to make sure we put a lot of Vietnamese people out of work and send them back to live in a dumpster. And we're going to be proud of that so that some guy who barely graduated high school, can make an extra $3,000 a year. There's something wrong with that. I grew up, my mother said, with great privilege comes great responsibility. I don't want to send the Vietnamese guy back to the dumpster. And I'm proud to give people opportunities because guess what? My business is worldly. Part of why I ultimately gave up my citizenship was I don't want to be attached to that stuff, either in showing my passport or representing myself in some way, or just feeling it in my soul. Because I think the underdog is actually the better way to be. I think that's the mark of someone more successful. It's the mark of someone more humane. It's the mark of someone more everything. And I think right now the zeitgeist is, yeah, good. Like go and kill them all, or go and do this, or go and do that. Because like we're, America proud. It's like there's nothing too alpha about that.
So it was great doing this with you. I'm excited to see the reaction, and we'll keep talking.
Thank you, Glenn.
This is the ultra luxury side of Bangkok. And showing you the hidden gems of Bangkok. So that you can live like a king.